Hello and welcome to the Rebel Ballerina Show. I am Lisa Loree, your host, the Rebel Ballerina. And that's such a funny name. Actually, it's the title of my book too, but I think being a ballerina is rebellious in nature in its own right, actually. It's a pretty tough thing to do. It's seriously the hardest thing you can do with a human body. And so it's a rebellion against laziness and complacency and the easy route. But then I had to further rebel against something that was so insidious in my life. I had no idea what was going on. But I find that probably the vast majority of folks are operating from this pattern, and it's really destructive as adults. It was a fascinating, brilliant mechanism to get us through childhood, facing the different whatever traumas there were. And you know what? I was just talking to a friend who I was explaining all this stuff with, and she herself is a fawn. And she's like, but I had great parents. You know, she had a really nice upbringing. And she did say that she had some friends at school as she was a kid that she really didn't want to, you know, it was that FOMO, fear of missing out with these particular kids. And that caused her to fawn. So it's like these other things. You don't even have to have an actual trauma, though many of us do have some actual thing. But it could also be just that fear of missing out kind of thing. But really, it could even just be a perception. Like I was talking it over with Jimmy the other day, and it's like, you know, you hear a rustling in the bushes. And then back in the day, did you look and, you know, check it out and see and think you saw some stripes? And then you're like, oh, maybe I didn't. Maybe there's really nothing there. Maybe that isn't a saber-toothed tiger. Maybe there was a breeze, or there was a small animal that ran through there and created a rustle. But our survival mechanism is the way it is so that we survive, because what if that was a saber-toothed tiger, right? You got to run or do something to save yourself. But if you look and you see, oh, that wasn't really what I thought. Now ask yourself, did your body have that same fight or flight response? Even though at first it was a perceived thing that ended up not being reality. So that's what I'm talking about. Even when you're a little kid, and you know, when we're babies, I mean, we have absolutely no way of providing for ourselves. All we can do is cry and hope to goodness we don't get ignored. But while you're in the process of crying, it feels like you're being ignored, right? And for depending how long that goes on, it's like, maybe that's not, you know, maybe that's where some of this comes up. Is just a perception of I'm not getting what I need. I'm just throwing that out there. So you don't have to go through the most horrible abuse to actually end up as a fawn. That's what I'm really saying. It could just even be perceived. It could be like in my case, I fawned to my mom like crazy. My dad, he was clearly a narcissist, very narcissistic, we'll put it that way. Very delusional, actually. And so he had kind of tossed me aside by the age of 2. So I never really had a relationship with him. I wasn't the snuggly person. My sister was more snuggly, and so that's where that relationship was better, if you will, um, than I just didn't have one. I am not a snuggly person, and here I am on the spectrum. Now we know probably why I'm not a snuggly person. Didn't know that then. But he just kind of tossed me aside, whereas, it didn't bother my mom that I wasn't snuggly, and she loved me ferociously. But she was also very, very ill with cancer. And the first round of this was when I was like 5 years old. So my perception was, your mom can't deal with you, which was true because she was trying to live, trying to survive and beat this horrible thing in her body. But a 5-year-old doesn't understand. I do remember she came home from the hospital after a surgery and was laying on the couch, and everybody, of course, was like, "Don't, just leave your mom alone. Leave your mom alone. She's really sick." And I was thinking, wow, boy, I'm equating sick with the flu. You know what I mean? So then it was kind of terrifying to ever getting sick, because it's like, am I gonna have to go to the hospital? Am I gonna have surgery because I'm sick? Because we just don't understand at that level when you're a little kid. Or it just wasn't explained. Maybe I would have understood. I can tell you that my son would have he would have understood it. He would have gotten it like that, like, oh, okay. Anyway, but as I was discovering this whole fawn mechanism in myself and figuring out how to eliminate the fawn response and instead being a rebel fawn, so in other words, I'm protecting my nature of being kind and giving and loving and wanting to do things for other people. I still do that all the time, and it's really fun. It's actually way more fun now because I know I'm not being exploited for that, because I've learned how to protect myself and who, to be real choosy about who gets to have that kind of response from me, giving and that sort of thing. So I was thinking, though, okay, it was very clear. My dad, he's narcissistic, so, that's kind of a given. But my mom? Oh, my mom did not have a narcissistic personality at all. She was incredibly giving, very kind, very generous, very well, she's a fawn. So it's like, well, wait a second. Why was I feeling like I was fawning to her in the wrong way? It wasn't just the giving thing. There was something about it that didn't add up as I was investigating this, as I was writing my book, still am, should be published this year. and as I'm writing my coursework to help others with this whole thing, it really dawned on me that you don't necessarily even fawn against a person, because in this case, I was fawning for that stupid cancer. That was the narcissist I was dealing with there. I would do anything to make sure that she stayed alive. Anything that I possibly could. And when you're a real little kid, you don't have a lot of power and options. So that feels like a very, very helpless situation. But in, if she needed something, or I tried to make sure I was just a good girl. I did what I was told so that everything was nice and not chaotic. It was calm and peaceful as much as possible. So I learned a lot of fawning because of the cancer. And I bring that up because sometimes, just like my friend that's like, but my parents were great. I had a good upbringing, and they were great. I know her parents. But we sometimes can end up in this fawn response out of perception. We perceive there's some kind of threat. We perceive that we're not safe for whatever reason. And in this case, for me, it was, yeah, I perceived there was a threat. My mom was going to die, and I couldn't do anything about it. So even though she herself was absolutely not a narcissist, that cancer sure was. And that's what I was fawning from. That was where my response, my trauma response, was coming from, coupled along with my dad, of course. And then there were lots of other things that went on. You can read about it in my book. But there were lots of things that continued on this response until I was so heavily embedded in it that it was dictating my life, and as an adult, destroying my life. And that's the rub. See, this is a great function when you're a kid, because keeping the peace, that's kind of smart. Causing more problems, maybe not so much. Right? If the goal is to stay safe and feel accepted and well, yeah, safe, accepted, that you're not going to be abandoned, then keeping the peace is a really smart way to go. Preempting, reading the room, so to speak, and preempting struggles. That's a pretty smart thing to do. Just do what you're told so that people don't get upset. Pretty smart thing to do. This whole fawning thing's a pretty smart thing when you're a kid, but it comes back to haunt you when you're not. Once you're an adult, then we got to sever ties with that. Now, that doesn't mean to stop being a good person. And I want to make that extraordinarily clear. No, we need more and more good people. We need lots and lots of fawns, but we need lots of rebel fawns, because we need people to still be nice and kind and generous and do the right things and behave nicely to each other, even if they're perfect strangers, even if it's when you're parking your car and you're staying within the lines, for instance, in case you saw that episode. So we need that. But the difference is that now when I'm giving to someone, or I'm functioning in a certain way that looks like what could be considered a fawn, it's not because I am doing it out of fear. Now I get to do this because I just want to. There are no fear strings attached, in other words. And that's a much better, much more fun place to operate from, because it's relaxed. It's not chaos. It's just giving or doing or whatever the case may be, where we do that as fawns, and yet we're very, very exploited for it until we become rebels, grow some antlers, and learn how to create strong boundaries. And then a funny thing happens when you do that. You really start to see who around you are good people and who are not. It becomes pretty stark. And you're probably already understanding that, like, intuitively. I know my intuition just screamed at me for years. And I was just like, shut up, because I didn't want to hear it. I didn't know what to do with it. It's like, well, I'm already stuck in this situation. I don't know what else to do. So I ignored my intuition. That's not such a smart thing to do. Eventually, I listened to it, thankfully, and here I am as a rebel fawn and wanting to help other fawns become rebels. And believe me, this is not gender specific. There are plenty of women out there who are narcissists. And so there are plenty of men too who are dealing with this same fawn response pattern because of the traumas that they have also experienced. So it's it just so happens that because of who I am and I look at my life, my fawn response is geared me to find that kind of man who would be narcissistic. And you can just see it in my whole life. And I have a feeling that that same thing could hold true for men if their moms were the narcissist, that precludes them or persuades them to find and to be prey for that type of woman. So it goes both ways. There's no gender specific here. There's no, it's just fawns. That's it. But because I'm always talking about, what my experience was, you might get the misunderstanding that this is only a problem that men are all the narcissists are men. That's not true. That's not true at all. My experience is more that simply because of how this all came to be for me, especially with the beginning with my dad. So, when your dad tosses you aside, emotionally speaking, I mean, he was there in the house. He had nothing to do with me unless it was to complain about something or that my grades weren't good enough or whatever other criticism there might have been. But there was not a real relationship there. And so, when you're 2 years old, you understand that a person just really isn't there for you. And that causes some pretty severe anxiety, right? Thank God I had my mom because she was there until she got sick and then couldn't be there because she needed her own space in order to heal and get well and all of that. But then uh after that, she got seriously sick again. She had a nice span of a few, well, like I want to say 6 or 7 years where we thought she was just fine. But then it came back with a vengeance. And she was very, very, very ill for a very long time. But during that time, I'll tell you what, she was something else. She still drove me into town and back for my ballet classes. She was still sewing costumes. She was our little company photographer and very involved. She went back to school. She went back to college. She got her associates in college while she was battling cancer. I mean, talk about someone with some chutzpah, right? She was something. And so it was very apparent that she herself was also a fawn and she was a very giving, wonderful person. But I tell you what, that cancer. So just be on the lookout when you're thinking about your own life and you're coming against someone who is very much a taker, an exploiter, a manipulator, and makes you feel guilty and all of that stuff. If there's another, and that's happening now, if there was some underlying thing that predisposes you to that now. So back then, it was setting you up for this now current situation. But know that it doesn't even have to be as easy as like it was very easy to see in my situation. It's like, oh, yeah, no wonder. But there might be even a perception. And if you were to evaluate some of those perceptions, maybe you might be able to unravel that and go, oh, you mean I've been thinking all these years that it was this, and really that's not even true at all? And then whatever thing, if there's something you need to apologize or just talk and say, hey, you know what? For all this time, I thought blah, blah, blah. And now I understand it wasn't like that at all. And, or whatever the situation is. If anything, it just gives you peace of mind because then you can understand where that fawn response might have come from in a situation where you just didn't seem to have a particular person that would cause that response as you're growing up. But I don't know, it's just very interesting. We're doing a lot of work right now getting the program ready and just seeing and hearing from different people and the things that they say. Um, even this friend who was like, "But I know I'm a fawn. That sounds like me." But yet I can't pinpoint that to any particular person when I was really young. But there are other things, perceptions, circumstances that might actually trigger that without even being so obvious. I know that that's the case. It really took me a while because it irritated me because when I was thinking about this, I'm like, but my mom was not narcissistic. And anybody who knew her would be like, huh? Your mom? No. No, she was not. I mean, unless she was like extraordinarily covert. But no, that's not the case. She was who she is in front of me at home and in front of everybody at home as she is in the community, as at church, at the studio, at wherever. She was who she was, is. And so that there was no covertness there. So that's why it took me a while. And I finally figured it out and I was like, oh, you know what? That really makes sense because that cancer, that was a huge threat. That was a huge threat because I already had been dismissed by one parent, and the one that remains has a death threat on her. What happens if she's gone? That's what my subconscious was dealing with. And that's a pretty big um, cause, a very reasonable and obvious cause for a fawn response. So anything that she wanted, it was like, ooh, how can I make you happy? That was my thing. I just wanted to make her happy. Keep the peace, keep things calm, keep things so that she could heal, she could get better, and continue to take care of me, of course. Yes, being selfish child, but that's that's normal too because I mean that's the whole reason we need our parents. And that's one of the most disastrous reasons that this trauma response is so difficult because we need the very person sometimes, not my mom. I didn't need the cancer, but my dad, I needed my dad. So we end up having that same thing through adult life. Oh, but I need that person. Well, maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe need isn't the right word as an adult. As a kid, yeah, you did need them because who else was going to take care of you? Right? We're so limited as children, babies, obviously, but even young children, you're 5-year old, you're not going to go out and get a job. I mean, unless you're seriously industrious. Um, but you're not going to go out and do the adult things that you do to take care of you. I mean, you might be able to know how to cook a few things, but certainly I would think by 5 you can pour your own cereal and milk. But how did that cereal and milk end up in your home? Does a 5-year-old go out and get it? Probably not. So we need those people. And oftentimes it's those people, or it could be a sibling. Anyway, it's those people around us that we need when we're kids. But as adults, I think we might want to reframe that. Do we need them? Or do we just have this strange sense of obligation? Because that's what society has told us. Well, you have to, it's your family. Oh, you got it. I mean, it's your family. Yeah, but if your family is abusive, what good is that? Do we need that? Are we actually going to say we need the abuse from family just because they're family? I think we need to start changing some ways of thinking here because that's one thing I was able to do with my dad. I realized at 2 years old, he is not a dad. He's just a guy. And I will say this, he did work really hard and he definitely provided a good life and all those ballet lessons and everything. So he didn't just leave us like, oh, we don't know how to take, and leave my mom with nothing. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about relationally. But I knew he was not on my side. I mean, he did threaten to or say that he was going to stop paying for those lessons because he just didn't want to anymore because why are we spending all this money? Anyway, so I knew he didn't know who I was. He didn't understand what I'm about and that kind of stuff. That's the thing that I'm talking about. So I knew that by the age of 16, I was very much more on the defense of my mom. It wasn't really for my sake, definitely for her sake that I stood against him. And by the age of in my 40s, I had to just finally decide I don't have a dad. I don't. I don't have a dad. And that's okay. That part. And that's okay. That part. That's the part that we need to start looking into because you can't say that when you're 5. It's not okay because you need to be taken care of. But as an adult, we can decide that. We can decide, yeah, someone's a family member and they're a piece of shit. And I don't have to be a part of that. And that's okay. I can choose not to have anything to do with that person anymore. Yeah, they're family, but why do we get so entrenched on but they're family and we have to put up with whatever bullshit they dish out because they're family? Why? I really want to know. If you have an answer for that, please let me know. If you have a real, reasonable, logical explanation as to why we should keep hold of people who are not good for us because they're family, oh, I literally would love to hear from you. I would love to hear because I just don't see it. So please give me a good reason why we should stick around for family members when they're pieces of shit instead of going, you know what? I don't have that person anymore. And that's okay. And being fine with it and walk away. And yeah, they're going to still try to make your life miserable because just that's what they do. And they're not going to like the fact that someone actually stood up to them. They're really not going to like that. So do be prepared. That's why you got to grow some antlers and be firm and strong. Nice pokey antlers. So that you can stand your ground. But seriously, some things that need to be reconsidered as we go along in this humanity thing. There's okay, family is great. And you know what? If you've got a great family and your parents are really super good to you and there were no abuses, there's no manipulation and all of that, of course you should do whatever it takes to take care of them in their later years if that's what they need. But if they're a piece of shit to you and now suddenly they're like, "Oh, you got to take care of me." No, no, no. No you don't. No you don't. You don't. Or whoever that family member might be. Could be a cousin, could be a sibling, or even a friend that's just been around for a really long time. There is no obligation towards being treated badly. There's no obligation, or at least there shouldn't be. And that is what the rebellion is about, is being able to safeguard your goodness and freely share your goodness with the right people. And then protect yourself from not the right people. So anyway, just some things to think about. Not really a rant today. They're a little more fun, I think. But I don't know. It just was like I wanted to differentiate, get some more specifics into, this whole who are we fawning for, or why are we fawning in the first place? And it doesn't even have to be a person. Could even just be a perception. So that's it. That's it. Now, I hope to goodness that you're going to have a great day today. And that if you run into someone that you are wondering, do I really need this person? Because they don't treat me very well. I really hope you'll think about this and give me a comment. Let's talk about it. Anyway, have a great day, and I'll see you next time.